Hi everyone, it's Miss Costa here, and in this video I'm going to be taking you through all of the AQA advanced material for the GCSE foundation paper in May 2022. Now, as always, if there are any sections that you want me to explain in more depth, just drop a comment below and I'll make a video for them. Okay, so just to give you a quick idea of the topics coming up, I'm going to just let these slides play and you can see the algebra topics, the number topics that are coming up, the geometry and measures topics, ratio, statistics and probability. Now the video is going to play in this order, so you might want to skip to a certain section if you know statistics is your area of weakness, or you might want to watch the video the whole way through. As always, if there's a particular topic you need extra help on, let me know and I'll make a video for that separately. Okay, so in this question, I'm being asked to solve the equations. Now, when I want to solve something, it means I need to find the missing value. So in this case, the missing value is x, that's my variable, and I want to get my answer in the form x equals. Now, when we're solving equations, it's really important that we know what's actually happening in the expression on either side. So in the first one, I've got 4x plus 2 divided by 3. Now, it helps if you draw yourself a little flow diagram to think about what order the operations are occurring in. So x is being multiplied by 4, then it's having a 2 added to it, and all of this is being divided by 3. And the result is 5. So now you know what order things are occurring in. When we're trying to solve equations, we always use the reverse of BIDMAS, or the order of operations, to figure out what order to do things in. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply both sides of the equation by 3. Now the reason I'm multiplying both sides of the equation is 3 is because if something is divided by 3, and then I times it by 3, it cancels itself out. So I'm always doing the reverse so that it cancels out on one side of the equation. And to keep them balanced, whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other. So I'm left with 4x plus 2 equals 15. The next step using my flowchart would be to take 2 from both sides. So I do that because it cancels on one side, and I'm left with 4x equals 13. And the last step would be to divide by 4. So I divide both sides by 4 and I'm left with x equals 13 over 4. Now, unless you're asked to give your answer in a decimal form, it's fine to leave it as a fraction. So in this next example, we've got x on both sides. Now, when you've got an equation that has x on both sides, the first thing you want to do is find the smallest one. So in this case, 3x is less than 5x, and subtract it from both sides because the equations are balanced scales. So whatever you do to one side, as long as you do it to the other, they're going to remain balanced. So if I subtract 3x from both sides, I'm left with 2 equals 2x take 7. Okay, so the 3x take 3x cancels, you do the same to the other side, and you're left with 5x take 3x, which is 2x. So now you've got a normal two-step equation, and we can use the flowchart to think what order things are happening in. So x is being, first of all, multiplied by 2, and then 7 is being subtracted from it, and the result is 2. So to work backwards, the first thing that I can move from one of the sides is the 7. I can add 7 to both sides using the flowchart. I know that's the first thing that I can do, and I'd be left with 9 equals 2x. What would the next step be? Well, I have to do the inverse. The inverse of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. So I divide both sides by 2, and I'm left with x equals 9 over 2. Now, you can leave that as a decimal if you like, because hopefully most of us can do 9 divided by 2 in our heads, but you can also leave it in fraction form unless it's specified that you need to leave it as a decimal. Don't be afraid to leave things in fraction form, especially if they're nasty numbers, like if you've got something like, I don't know, 13 over 3. Might be a bit tricky to do, so just leave it as a fraction. That's absolutely fine. Now, this equation has brackets in it. Don't let that scare you. Whenever you see brackets, all you need to do is just expand them. So when we're expanding brackets, the number on the outside tells us how many times we're multiplying each part on the inside by. So 7 multiplied by x would give me 7x, and 7 multiplied by -2 would give me -14. Okay, so then you're left with an equation with variables on both sides, like the one that we just solved. So when you've got variables on both sides, you always choose the smallest one. So in this case, 7x, and you just subtract it from both sides to keep the equations balanced. So you take 7x from both sides, and you'd be left with -14 equals 3x, take 7. Now we can do our flow diagram to see what order things are occurring in. So the x is being multiplied by 3, and then 7 is being subtracted from it. And I'm left with -14 as a result. So to work my way backwards, I'm going to have to add 7 and then divide by 3. So let's do that in our equations. I add 7 to both sides. -14 plus 7 is -7 equals 3x. And then what would I have to do? Divide by 3. So x would be -7/3. Once again, you can just leave this as a fraction. And here's our final one. So over here, let's just consider what's happening with our flow diagram. So x is being, first of all, divided by 4, because x is attached to this 4 in a fraction. So the first thing that is acting upon it is a division. So x is being divided by 4, and then I add 2 to it. And the result is 7. So what do I have to do? I work my way backwards. 7, take 2, and then multiplied by 4. So in this case, the first thing I need to do is take the 2. I'm left with x over 4 is 5, and then multiply both sides by 4. So you're left with x equals 20. Now, in this question, I'm being asked to match each graph to its equation. So it's really important that we know some basics. Hopefully, you know that every line can be written in the equation y equals mx plus c, where m represents or stands for the gradient and c is the y-intercept. Now, this is the case for any straight line, and 3 of these graphs have straight lines, so we can use this to help us figure out which one must be which. Now, I know graph B has a negative y-intercept because it crosses the line, it crosses the y-axis below 0. So I know that y-intercept is going to need to be a negative, and the only one that has a negative y-intercept is y equals x plus 4. So graph B must be y equals x take 4. The next one, I have a choice between y equals 3x plus 3 or 7 take 2x. Now don't be fooled. Every line can be written in the form y equals mx plus c. So if you have a negative gradient, the gradient is always the coefficient of x, and all that means is the number attached to the x. So I could rewrite it as y equals minus 2x plus 7, because the gradient is the -2. Now, if I have a negative gradient, the line is always going to be sloping downwards. You can kind of remember this if you think about the hill of gradients. Okay, so imagine walking up a hill. If you're going upwards, that's a positive slant. So if the line looks like that, going upwards, then it's a positive gradient. If it's going in this direction, down the hill, then it's a negative gradient. So I know that graph A has a negative gradient. And I also know that its y-intercept is above 0. So graph A must match to y equals 7 minus 2x. The gradient is negative and the y-intercept is above 0. So I don't know exactly what it is, but 7 makes sense. And that leaves me with the last one, y equals 3x plus 3. I know it's a positive gradient, and I also know that it crosses the y-axis above 0 as its y-intercept is 3. So I'd match graph D over there. Now, graph C, this is something that's called a reciprocal graph, and it's always going to either look like this, or If it was negative, it would look like that. Okay, so your graphs that kind of look like two C's opposite each other, that's a reciprocal graph. So graph C would match to that. And y equals x squared, and y equals x squared graph is always going to look like this. It's always going to have a line of symmetry, because a negative number squared is the same as its positive. A negative times a negative gives you a positive. So if you had -2 squared, that would be 4, just as 2 squared would be 4. So the coordinates always match on either side. Now you know that its y-intercept is +3, so that one makes sense. If you had a graph that was maybe like there, you might guess that might be y equals x squared take 4, because the y-intercept would be negative. So I would match that to graph E. So in this question, I'm being asked to draw the graph 2x plus y is 2 for the values of x from -3 to 3. Now, when you're being asked to draw a graph, sometimes they're going to give you a table of values and ask you to fill it in. And sometimes they're going to be mean and they're not going to. So it's up to you to realise that you need to draw a table of values. Now, you've been told that the values need to be from -3 to 3. So you just plot yourself a little table of values from x values of -3 to 3, and usually these are going to match the x values on the graph, so you can see that the x-axis goes from -3 to 3. Now we know the equation is y equals 2 take 2x. Now what I've done is rearranged that equation. If you're not confident with rearranging, you can just use 2x plus y equals 2. But all it means is that you're substituting each x value into the equation to figure out its y coordinate. So the first x value, it's always so much easier to start from the positives, especially if negatives aren't your forte. Start from the positive, start from the right-hand side. So 2x plus y, let's do it the way that the equation has been written. 2x, I would do 2 times 3. That's my x coordinate, plus y equals 2. What's 2 times 3? 6. So 6 plus y equals 2. Now 6 plus -4 gives me 2. So y would be -4. Remember, a positive and a negative, when they're next to each other, becomes a negative. So if you're adding a negative, it's the same as subtracting. So 6 take 4 is 2. Now let's do the same for the next one. When x is 2, 2 times 2 plus y equals 2. I'm just, wherever it says 2x, I'm substituting the value of x and I'm leaving everything else the same. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus y equals 2. So think to yourself, 4 plus what gives you 2? Well, 4 plus -2 gives you 2. So the y coordinate here would be -2. Do the same when x is 1. So 2 times 1 plus y equals 2. So 2 plus something gives me 2. 2 plus 0 gives me 2. So the y coordinate would be 0. Now, if it's a straight line graph and your x values are going up in ones, then you can actually do a little cheat method and realise that each time the coordinates are following a pattern. So from -4 to -2, it's going up by 2. From -2 to 0, it's going up by 2. So you can predict what the next steps would be. So I know if it's going up in 2s, 0 would match with 2, -1 would match with 4, 6, 8. Now you can double check this. So I'd always, if you're going to use this little cheat method, always double check it. So over here, let's just pick -2 and see if it works. So 2 times -2 plus y equals 2. 2 times -2 gives me -4 plus y equals 2. What have I said the y value is? I've said it's 6. Does -4 plus 6 give me 2? Yeah, so you know that you've done it right. So now what we need to do is start plotting our coordinates. So the coordinates, this is the x coordinate where it says x, and the y coordinate is below. So that's the coordinate 3, -4. And I plot it by going along to 3 and down to -4. I do the same with the next one. 2, -2, then 1, 0, 0, 2, -1, 4, and negative 2, 6. Well, I can't actually plot that on the graph, so I just do the coordinates that I can. And don't forget to then join them together with a straight line. I'm obviously doing it on an iPad, so without a ruler. In the exam, make sure you use a ruler and make sure that you join your points. And that's how you draw it. Obviously, I've chosen a slightly tricky equation. You might get lucky and get something like y equals x plus 5, which would be much simpler, but I wanted to do the harder one just so that you know how to do that. So in this question, we are looking at linear graphs and we're being asked to plot 3 lines, okay? So the line y equals 5 and x equals negative 3. People, for some reason, always seem to ignore these when it comes to the exam, and these are some of the easiest lines that you can plot. What the line y equals 5 means is that every single y coordinate on this line must be 5. So look at the y-axis, that coordinate there, that would be 0, 5. Over here we'd have 1, 5, 2, 5, 3, 5, 4, 5, 6, 5, and so on. Okay, so every single y coordinate on this line, when I cross the y-axis at 5, that gives me the line y equals 5. And you can test it out. Just pick a random coordinate, like over here. Oh, I don't know why it deleted itself. Over here, let's pick that coordinate. What's that coordinate? That's negative 6, 5. And every coordinate is written in the form x and then y, so you know that that's the line y equals 5. And by the same token, the line x equals negative 3, you find where negative 3 is on the x-axis, and you draw a vertical line going down. Obviously, you do it with a ruler. Okay, so that's the line y is 5, the line x equals negative 3. And also, I've got the line y equals 2x, take 1. So hopefully you watched the video in the section before. What do you need to do when plotting a line like that? You want to draw your table of values. So over here, I am going to pick some random ones, just to speed this up a bit, and see what the values are. So y is 2 times by x, and then I take 1. That is what this equation means. 2x means 2 times x, and then I take 1. So if x is 3, y would be 2 times 3, which is 6, and then take 1, which gives me 5. I do the same for the next one. Y is 2 times 1, which is 2. Take 1, gives me 1. For negative 1, y is 2 times negative 1, which is negative 2. Take 1, gives me negative 3. And when x is negative 3, I do 2 times negative 3, which is negative 6. Take 1 is negative 7. So now I can plot these coordinates. So I've got 3, 5 over here. I've got 1, 1, negative 1, negative 3, and negative 3, negative 7. I join this together with a straight line, and I can just label it. So that's the line y equals 2x minus 1. And you are being asked to name the shape formed by the intersection of the 3 lines. So this is where the 3 lines intersect, and this is the area formed by it. And that, hopefully you recognise, is a right-angled triangle. So the key thing to remember with things like this is when you've got a graph, use your table of values to plot it. Vertical lines and horizontal lines are just x equals something, y equals something. And the intersection of lines is just where lines cross. Also, if you're drawing a straight line and your coordinates, for some reason, one is slightly off, you know that coordinate is wrong. So go back and try it again. When you're drawing a straight line, the line needs to be straight. So if it isn't, that's your hint that you've done something wrong. So just check your calculations for that. So when we're dealing with the intersection of lines, what's really important to know is that when lines intersect on a graph, that means when the x and the y coordinates are the same for both lines. So that's actually how we can solve simultaneous equations. So here we're being told that we have the graph y equals 6 take away x. This is the line y equals 6 take x. And we are being asked to draw the graph of y equals x plus 1 for the x values from 0 to 5. So remember, draw your little table of coordinates. They've asked us to do it from 0 to 5. So you write 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And y equals x plus 1. So remember, it's just whatever the x coordinate is plus 1. So y is, for the first one, 0 plus 1, which is 1. For the next one, y would be 1 plus 1, which is 2. And then y would be 2 plus 1, which is 3. Hopefully you can see the pattern, so you just fill it in. Double check. Does 5 plus 1 make 6? Yes. So you know you've plotted those right. So let's plot this now. 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6. Okay, join your line together with a ruler and then label it. So that's the line y equals x plus 1. And I've done that. Now for the next part, I'm being asked to use the graphs to solve the simultaneous equations y equals 6 take x and y equals x plus 1. Now, these are the lines that have been drawn on the graph, so I don't need to do any extra work. I just need to look at the graph. And when you're solving equations from a graph, you just look for the point of intersection, so where the lines cross. In this case, they cross over here, and that is exactly 2.5 and 3.5. So the x coordinate for where they cross is 2.5 and the y coordinate is 3.5. So to solve simultaneous equations graphically, you just look for the point of intersection, and whatever the coordinates are, they are your x and y values. So in some questions, you are going to be presented with a graph and it's up to you to interpret what is happening in that graph. So over here, I'm being told that this graph is used to work out the cost, C, over here. So the y-axis represents the cost to hire a bouncy castle for a number of days, D. So the x-axis is the number of days that it can be hired for. Now, I'm being asked to find out what the formula is for the cost to hire the bouncy castle. So the formula is asking me to work out what the cost is. So I know that's going to be the subject of the formula. So I could write C equals, so the cost equals, and then let's figure out what's going on. So the graph starts over here. Now, if the graph doesn't start at 0, that means that there is a fixed charge or a starting charge. So to hire a bouncy castle, you don't just hire it per day. You have to pay an initial deposit charge, fixed charge for hiring the whole thing. And then there's an additional cost per day. So the initial cost over here must be £1,000. And then there's an additional cost per day. So to work out what the rate per day must be, or the rate of change of the graph, we want to work out the gradient. And that simply means figuring out how much the graph increases per day. Now, there's two ways of doing it. Either you could look at what one day is. So I know, oh, that's a bit small. So I know that for one day, there's the graph increases by £80. Okay, so 80 divided by 1 is 80. So I know the cost per day must be 80. Or if you don't like fiddly things and you just want to do a really large gradient, you could do the cost for all 10 days. So you know that for all 10 days, the cost increases by 800. So you could do 800 divided by 10, which once again gives you 80. So you know the cost per day is 80. So we'd say the cost for the bouncy castle is 1,000 plus 80 times by the number of days. Now, we're then told that the cost of hiring an ice cream van is given by the formula C equals 50D plus 500. So the cost is £50 per day plus £500 initial fixed charge. Michaela chooses to hire the bouncy castle and the ice cream van for the same number of days. And the total cost is £2,000, 150. So we're being asked to work out the number of days she hires them for. So she hires the ice cream van, which costs this much, and the bouncy castle, which costs this much. I said it the wrong way around. And the total cost is 2,150. So I know that the total cost is 2,150. And that is for hiring the bouncy castle, which is 1,000 plus 80D, and the ice cream van, which is 50D plus 500. So what I can do is simplify that. So £1,000 plus £500 would be 1,500, plus 80 plus 50 gives you 130. So 2,150 is 1,500 plus 130D. And when I'm rearranging a formula, it's like solving an equation. So as long as you do the same to one side as you do to the other, it remains balanced. So I can take 1,500 away from here, and I'd be left with 650 equals 130D. And then my last step would be, I need to do 650 divided by 130 to figure out how many days it is. So how can I do that? Well, if I've got hundreds, I can just divide by 10. So divide both by 10, I'm left with 65 divided by 13. And if you can't do the Bostock method in terms of with two numbers, then just do repeated addition. So I know 13 plus 13 is 26, plus 13 is 39, plus 13 is 52, plus 13 is 65. Okay, so just keep going until you reach a number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 65 divided by 13 is 5. So she works, she hires them both for 5 days. So now we're being asked to create our own formula, use it, and interpret it. So Akeem is taking a taxi. The taxi driver has a fixed fare of £5 and then charges 30p per kilometre. So use this information to write a formula for the cost in pence of a journey of k kilometres. Now I'm being asked to write a formula for the cost, so that's going to be the subject of my formula, C. And I know there's a fixed fare of £5, so I know however long my journey is, I'm going to need to pay £5, whether it's a mile or 200. £5 is the base charge. And then it is 30 pence per kilometre. Now, I've been asked to write it in pence, so I'm just going to quickly need to convert £5 into pence. I know there are 100 pence in a pound, so £5 would be 500p. And then it's 30 pence per extra kilometre. So it's 30 lots of however many kilometres you have. So that would be my formula. The cost is 500 pence, which is the fixed fare, plus 30 pence per kilometre. And remember in algebra, instead of writing the multiplication sign, we just lumber our number and our variable together, and the multiplication is implied. Now I need to use this formula to find the cost of his 15-kilometre journey. So what I need to do is substitute 15 into the variable that represents kilometres, which is k. So I'd do C is 500 plus 30 times 15. Now, how can I do 30 times 15? Well, there's a few ways, but for the non-calculator, you could say 30 is the same as 3 times 10. So therefore, 30 times 15 would be 3 times 10 times 15. I could do 3 times 15, which is 450, and then times that by 10. I mean, that's 45, and then times that by 10, and that gives you 450. So C would be 500 plus 450, which is 950 pence. They haven't specified whether to leave it in pence or pounds, so 950 pence or £9.50 would be absolutely fine. Now we're being told that his friend uses the same taxi driver, so obviously the same fixed fare and charge, and his journey costs £7.40. So the total cost, I'm going to substitute that in for C. So £7.40, I might turn it into pence. So 740 pence equals 500 plus 30k. So when I've substituted it into a formula, I want to rearrange it to find the missing variable, just like I do with equations. So I take 500 from both sides. I'm left with 240 equals 30k. What do I need to do? Divide both sides by 30. So k would be 240 divided by 30. And if I've got zeros, it means I can divide by 10. So divide by 10, you're left with 24 over 3. and 24 divided by 3 is 8. So therefore the journey must have been 8 kilometres. So in this question, I am being asked to use the term-to-term rule to figure out the next few terms. So I'm told the term-to-term rule is I multiply by 4 and then I subtract 5. And I'm told the first term is 3. So I start with 3 and I'm going to multiply it by 4 and then subtract 5. So 3 times 4 is 12, take 5 is 7. So the first term after 3 would be 7. I then use the term I've just figured out and I do exactly the same. 7 times 4 is 28 and then 28 take 5 gives me 23. So the next term would be 23. I do exactly the same. I do 23 times by 4. And how could I do that? I could do 20, split 23 up into 20 times 3 times by 4. Now I know 20 times 4 is 80. And then 80 times by 3, 8 times 3 gives me 24, and I add the 0. So the next term would be 240, take 5, which is 235. And finally, I do the same with 235. So 235 times by 4, I could split that up into 2 and 2, because 4 is the same as 2 times 2. So 235 times by 2 gives me 470. And 470 times by 2 gives me 940. So I take 5 from that, which leaves me with 935. And there I figured out the next 4 terms of the sequence. Now for the next question, I'm told that another sequence starts 4, 9, 14, 19, 24. So I'm just going to write that up over here, so that we could figure out what the nth term must be. Now, when I'm talking about the nth term, what that means is the rule of the sequence. And in order to do that, I want to think about what times tables my sequence is going up in. So I look at my sequence and I find the difference between each of the terms. This is a linear sequence. Now, how do I get from 4 to 9? I add 5, 9 to 14, I do the same, 14 to 19, and 19 to 24. I'm adding 5. So if I'm adding 5, that must mean that my sequence is going up in the 5 times tables. So I write 5n. N represents the position. So for instance, n would be 1 for the first term because it's the first term, 2 over here, 3 over here, 4 over here, 5 over here. N represents like the 5th term. So I write 5n because it's 5 times whatever position it's in. Now, if this was the 5 times tables, I can write the 5 times tables on top just to see what the difference would be. So if it was the 5 times tables, my first term would be 5, but it's not, it's 4. So I think, okay, well, my 5 times tables start with 5 and this sequence starts with 4. What's the difference between the original 5 times tables and this sequence? It's always 1 less. As you can see, 5 take 1 is 4, 10 take 1 is 9, 15 take 1 is 14. So the rule, the nth term, is 5n take 1. Now, if I know what the nth term is, I can use that to find the 100th term of the sequence. So remember, n represents the position. So for instance, n in this case would represent 100. So I use my formula, 5n take 1. What does 5n mean? It means 5 multiplied by n. So I do 5 times by 100, take 1, which is 500, take 1. So my 100th term would be 499. So for this question, we are being asked to work out a calculation. Now, with any calculation in maths, whether it's algebra, whether it's just simply numbers, you always have to follow the order of operations. So BIDMAS or BODMAS or however you've learnt it. So we're going to use that in order to know what we need to do first. So BIDMAS tells me that I first have to do anything that is in brackets. So I'd work out this and then this. So 53 times by 7, I'm going to use the lattice method here. You can use whatever way you like. 3 times 7 gives me 21, 5 times 7 gives me 35, and then I just add along the diagonals. So that would be 1, 2 plus 5 is 7, and 3. So 53 times by 7 is 371, and then I'm going to do 192 divided by 6. So how many times does 6 go into 1? 0, remainder 1. How many times does 6 go into 19? Well, I know 6 times 3 is 18, so that's 3 times, remainder 1. And how many times does 6 fit into 12? Oh, twice. So that would be 32. Okay, so you work out what's inside the brackets and you write it as an equivalent calculation underneath. And then you just do your subtraction. So 371, take 32. 1 take 2 I can't do, so I borrow. 11 take 2 is 9. 6 take 3 is 3. And 3 take nothing is 3. So your answer is 339. Now for the next question, we are being asked to circle the calculation that works out half of 14. Now, whenever you have a multiple choice question, the biggest advice I can give you is to actually work it out, because the reason they put multiple choice questions in is to catch you out, see if you're concentrating, and they put in answers they look like they should be the answer, but they aren't. So let's have a look at what's happening. I want to work out half of 14. So imagine you've got 14 and you want to split it in 2 and figure out what half of it is. Now, some of you might say, oh, yeah, I need to do 14 divided by 2. So you might be like, oh, this looks like it could work. But no, that is saying 2 divided by 14. It's saying how many 14s fit into 2, whereas you want to know how many 2s fit into 14. So that is not going to be an answer. 14 divided by 0.5, similarly, what that means is how many lots of 0.5 fit into 14. Now that's going to be 28, and that's definitely not our answer. Then we've got 14 divided by 50 times by 100. Well, perhaps people might think that 50 over 100 is the same as a half, but that does not give us the correct calculation. 14 over 50 times by 100 is the same as 14 times by 5,000. That would give us a vastly not correct answer. So that leaves us with this, okay, 14 times by a half. Now, what a really important thing for us to know is that multiplying by a half is the same as dividing by 2. So you might want to write that down. Multiplying by half is the same as dividing by 2, just as multiplying by a third would be the same as dividing by 3. And when we go on to the fractions unit, I can explain that in more detail. But half of 14, instead of dividing by 2, I can multiply by a half. And the reason for this is because if I wrote 2 as a fraction, it's 2 over 1. And when I divide fractions, I just multiply by the reciprocal, but we will cover that in the fractions unit. So half of 14 would actually be 14 times by a half. And then for the next question, we are being asked to write an estimate for the value. Now, whenever you see the word estimate, that means you are going to round. Okay, normally, if they don't tell you what to round to, you would always round to one significant figure. But in this case, we've been told to round each number to the nearest 10. So 348 to the nearest 10 would give me 350, and 21.7 to the nearest 10 would give me 20. Now, when I divide, I can just write it as a fraction, because this line here in the fraction is a divisor line. That just means divide. So I can just simplify it and create equivalent fractions until I get to something I can divide. 350 divided by 20, I can divide both the top and the bottom by 10. So I'm left with 35 divided by 2. And then that's a much simpler division for us to do. Either you might be able to do it in your head, or if you want to use the bus stop, you do how many 2's fit into 3, 1, remainder 1. How many 2's fit into 15? 7, because 7 times 2 is 14, and a remainder of 1. Remember, when you run out of numbers, you just write a couple of zeros and you put your remainder in front of the 0. So that's a remainder of 1. And how many 2's fit into 10? 5. So the estimate to this value would be 17.5. You don't round your final estimate, that is your estimate. So in this question, I am being asked to use the 4 operations with a worded question. So let's have a think and look about what is happening here. I'm told that there are 40 bricks in a crate and that Jake buys 6 crates for a total of £57. He sells 160 of these bricks for 60p each and then sells the rest of them at a reduced price, making a total profit of £71. I need to work out the reduced price of each brick. So the first thing I can do is figure out how many bricks he has in total. I know that there are 40 bricks in a crate and 6 crates he buys. So 40 times by 6, 4 times 6 is 24, and that's 0 is 240 bricks in total. I know that he sells 160 of them at that price of 60p. So 240 take 160 means that I am left with 4 take 6 I can't do, 14 take 6 is 8, 1 take 1 is nothing. So he sells 80 bricks at the reduced price. Now he makes a total profit of £71. Now profit is what you have remaining once you subtract any cost. So total takings of the day take away initial cost, and that cost would be, in this case, £57. So if he makes a total profit of £71, that must mean that he made a total taking of 57 plus 71. That gives me 7 plus 1 is 8, 5 plus 7 is 12, so £128. So he must have taken £128 in total. Now, he sells the 160 bricks at 60p each, so I want to work out what taking he makes from that. So 160, where shall I do this? 160 times by 60. I can just do this using the lattice method. So 160 times by 60, fill it in like this. 0 times 6 is 0, 0 times 0 is 0, 6 times 6 is 36, 6 times 0 is 0, 1 times 6 is 6, and 1 times 0 is 0. So add along the diagonals, I'm left with 6, and then 3 plus 6 is 9, 9,600p, which is £96. So from those 160 bricks, he made £96. Now, if he's made £96 from that, I must subtract that from the total takings. So the total takings are £128. He's made £96. 8 take 6 is 2. 2 take 9 I can't do. So that would leave me with 12 take 9, which is 32. So the total takings are £96 that he's made from the bricks he sold, and then £32 must be what he's made from the reduced price. So he has 80 bricks that he sold for something for £32. So I could do 3,200 divided by 80 to figure out how much he must have sold those bricks for. If I divide both top and bottom by 10, that leaves me with 320 divided by 8, and then I can divide that a little bit more simply. So 320, how many 8s go into 32? Well, how many 8s go into 3? None. So how many 8s go into 32? 32. 4. How many 8s go into 0? 0. So that must mean that he sold each reduced brick for 40p. Now this is a tricky question. The key thing is profit is what you have remaining once you subtract any cost incurred to you. So here we've got a question with negative numbers. Now I'm told that this is how the scores in a maths challenge are worked out. So if I get a correct answer, I get positive 2 points. No answer is 0 points, and an incorrect answer is negative 2 points. Now Rosie answers 7 of her first 10 questions. She gives 4 correct answers and 3 incorrect answers. So if she gives 4 correct answers, that must mean she gets 4 times 2, which is 8 points. And then 3 incorrect answers. So 3 times by -2 is -6. How many points does she score on the 10 questions? So she's scored 8 points, but then she's lost 6 points for the 3 incorrect questions. So she scores 2 points in total. Now, Patricia scores 12 points in total on the first 10 questions. And I need to complete the table to figure out how many correct answers, how many no answers, and how many incorrect answers she's done. So I know that in total she has 12 points. And in total there are 10 questions, but I don't know how many she's answered correctly. In order for her to have got 12, she must have answered some questions correctly. Otherwise, there's no way that she could get a positive score. So we could try guessing. So if let's guess with 8. So if she scored 8 correct, that would be 16 positive points. And if she scored 16, we need to think about how she could have worked with the remaining questions to get to 12. So we need to get to 12. How can we get there? By subtracting 4. So perhaps she answered 2 questions incorrectly, which would give us -4 points. And that would mean that obviously there's no questions that she didn't answer, unlike Rosie. So that's one way that we could complete that table. There might be other ways. I haven't actually worked this through before. But that is one way that we can get 12 from this scoring method. So negative numbers in just simple calculations. So I've got a 14 take away -3. Now, whenever I am subtracting a negative number, it is the same as adding, because I am taking away something that is detracting from the number. So if I was like 14 in a hot air balloon and I was like at a level of 14 meters above ground, and I threw out 3 sandbags, so I threw out something like a negative number, making it heavier, it would actually make me go higher. So when you're taking away a negative number, it's the same as adding, because you're increasing your value. So if you see 2 negatives next to each other in between 2 numbers, that's the same as adding. So that would give me 17. Then I've got -12 plus -3. Now, when I'm adding, so think of like a soup, if you're adding an ice cube, so adding a negative number, you're going to make it colder. So adding a negative number is the same as subtracting. So when you see a plus and a minus next to each other, that's the same as a minus. Now we've got -12, take 3. So you could just draw yourself a quick number line. -12 going upwards and downwards. Now, whenever you're subtracting, that means it's getting colder. So whenever you subtract, you always go down the number line. If you're adding, you go up the number line. In this case, I start at -12 and I'm going to subtract 3. So I go down 1, 2, 3. So that would give me -15. And lastly, I've got -14 divided by -2. Now, when you're multiplying or dividing, a negative times by a negative is going to give you a positive answer. So that's when you're multiplying or dividing. So therefore, -14 divided by -2 is going to give me +7. You can just do 14 divided by 2, which is 7, because they're both, it's going to give you a positive answer. Now, the temperature in Svalbard is -14 degrees during the night, and Siem Reap is 20 degrees warmer. What is the temperature in Siem Reap? So once again, you've got your number line, and I'm going to just draw it this way now. So it's -14, -13, -12, -11, -10, -9, so forth, so forth. So it is 20 degrees warmer in Siem Reap, which means I'm going to go up the number line. Whenever I'm adding or whenever it's getting warmer, I go up the number line. So I start at -14 and go up 20. So 1, 2, 3. Or if you don't want to draw out the number line for 20 numbers, you just think to yourself, okay, how would I get from negative 14 to 0. So let's just do it in jumps. Well, that would be 14. Okay, so I'd added 14 degrees. And then what would I need to do to get to 20? I need to add another 6 degrees. So in CMREAP, it would be 6 degrees. Okay, so you could either do a number line and write it all out, or you could do it in incremental jumps. So how do you get to 0? And from 0, how do you get to an addition of 20? So the order of operations, as we've mentioned before, is BIDMAS. So anything in brackets I do first, followed by anything in indices and anything that is being divided, multiplied, or added or subtracted. So I know I've got my brackets, so I can rewrite my equation like this: square root of 169, take, and then I need to work out whatever's inside the bracket. Now, 14 take 6 times by 2. I'd do the multiplication first, so that would give me 6 times 2 is 12. So I'm left with 14 take 12 in the brackets. 14 take 12 is 2. So I'm left with 169 take away 2 squared. Now, the next thing I need to do is the indices, but it doesn't really matter which order you do it in because you have to do them separately. So the square root of 169 is 13, and 2 squared means 2 times 2, which is 4. So you're writing out each calculation underneath as you do it bit by bit. And 13 take away 4 is 9. I've got an itchy nose. Okay, now here we've got a formula. And we want to work out the value of s when x is 3 and y is 7. So first, let's think about what this formula is doing. S is a half times by x squared times by y. Remember, when numbers and letters are next to each other, it means they are being multiplied. So I've got s equals a half times by the value of x is 3 squared, and the value of y is 7. So I just substitute that in. Now, a half times by 3 squared is 9 times by 7. 9 times 7, I know, gives me 63. So I've got a half times by 63. And hopefully you remember, when you are multiplying by a half, it is the same as dividing by 2. I can put this into a fraction. So s is 63 over 2. And I could work that out using my bus stop method. How many 2's going to 6? 3. How many 2's going to 3? 1. Remainder 1. How many 2's going to 10? 5. So my answer would be 31.5. So in this question, I am being asked to use approximations to estimate. Now, whenever you see the word approximate or estimate, generally, unless you were told otherwise, it means round each part of the calculation to one significant figure. Okay, now it's really important you do this for each part of the calculation. So let's have a go over here. 9.8 to one significant figure. The first significant figure is 9, so I would round that to 10. 3.18 squared, that would round to 3, so that would be 3 squared, and 0.53, that would round to 0.5. A lot of people tend to round that to 1, but the first significant figure is the first non-zero digit. Okay, so you circle that and you round that. So 10 times 3 squared is 10 times by 9 divided by 0.5. What's 10 times by 9? 90 divided by 0.5. Now, hopefully you remember that dividing by 0.5 is the same as multiplying by 2, because 0.5 is the same as a half, okay? So dividing by 0.5 is the same as multiplying by 2, so that would give me 180. 90 times 2. Now let's do the same for the next question. So I'm using approximations, which means I need to round each part to one significant figure. The only exception is when you've got square roots, and we'll talk about that in a second. So 0.516, I would round that to 0.5. 19.6, I would round that to 20 squared. And then I've got the square root of 26. Now, when you're dealing with a square root, you want to think about your square numbers. Hopefully you know your square numbers. If not, we'll quickly just recap them. So 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25, 6 times 6 is 36, 7 times 7 is 49. Now what you want to do is think, okay, 26 is in between which two square numbers? Well, it's in between 25, so I could talk about the square root of 25, and it's in between 36. Now, what is the square root of 25? That's 5. What's the square root of 36? That's 6. So the square root of 26 is going to lie somewhere in between 5 and 6. Now, it's a lot closer to 25 than it is to 36. So you'd probably want to be rounding it somewhere to like 5.1, 5.2. So the square root of 26 is closer to 25, but because I'm being asked to estimate the value, I would have rounded that to the square root of 25, which is 5. Okay, so 0.5 times by 20 squared. So 0.5 times by 400 divided by 5. Now timesing by 0.5 is the same as dividing by 2. Hopefully we're getting this written down. So that would give me 400 divided by 2 is 200. And divide it by 5. So how many 5s fit into 200? Well, 5's going to 2 0 times, remainder 2. 5's going to 24 times, and 5's going to 0 0 times. So that would give me 40. So now we've got some fraction arithmetic, so dividing and subtracting with fractions. Now the first thing I want to do, if I've been given mixed numbers, is turn them into improper fractions. So 2 3/4, what that means is 2 wholes, so 2 lots of 4/4 plus 3/4. What would that give me? 4 plus 4 plus 3 gives me 11, or the quick way would have been, I do 2 times 4, which is 8, plus the 3, which is 11. So 2 3/4 is 11/4. 1 2/3, what does that mean? Well, it means 1 whole, so 3/3 plus 2/3. Now, notice how I'm always writing the denominator in terms of what the other part of the mixed fraction is. So 3 plus 2 is 5, so that would be 5/3. Okay, now I use the keep, change, flip method. So think of KFC, but a cheap rip-off version of it. You keep the first fraction as it is, 11 over 4. You change the sign to a multiplication, and you flip the last fraction over. So you just reverse it. And then you just multiply. Now, when we're multiplying fractions, we multiply the numerators together. So 11 times 3, which is 33, and 4 times 5, which is 20. So that as a mixed number, I need to turn 33 over 20 into a mixed number now. So 33 over 20, I think to myself, how many lots of 20 fit into 33? Well, the 20 times table is a 20 and then 40. So I know there's only going to be one lot of 20 over 20 that fits into that. And from 20, what's left over to get to 33? I've got 13 left over. So that would be 1 and 13 over 20. Now, when we're subtracting fractions, the key thing we need to remember here is that we need to have the same denominators. So in order to add or subtract any fractions, the denominators always need to be the same. So we do the same as we did before and turn them into improper fractions first. So 3 1/5 means 3 lots of 5/5. So 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 5/5 plus a 5th. So that would be 16/5. Take away 1 1/3. So 1 1/3 would mean 3/3 plus 1/3. So that would be 4/3. Okay, so we've turned them into improper fractions, but now what we need to do is make them have the same denominator. And the way we do that is by finding the lowest common multiple, the smallest number that 5 and 3 multiply into. And in this case, that would be 15. So what have I multiplied the denominator 5 by to get to 15? I've multiplied it by 3. So I'm going to do the same to the numerator. So 16 times by 3. If you can't do that in your head, then just do repeated addition. So 16 plus 16 is 32, plus 16 again is 48. Then we've got 3. What have I multiplied the denominator of 3 by to get to 15? I've multiplied that by 5, so I have to do the same to the numerator. 4 times 5 is 20. And now that they both have the same denominator, it's like slices of cake, I can just subtract them. So I keep the denominator the same, as that's what they're out of, and I just do 48 take 20, which leaves me with 28 over 15. Once again, I've been asked to write it as a mixed number. So I think to myself, how many lots of 15 fit into 28? So 15 over 15, that's one lot. And the 15 times tables are 15, 30, 45. So I know that it's only going to be one whole. So 1, and then remainder from 15 to 28 would be 13. So 1 and 13 over 15. So fraction of a number is where we have something that we've been given and it has been split up into a certain number of pieces. So it always helps to draw a little diagram. So 2/5 of a number is 82. So 2/5 means you've got a whole and it's been split into 5 parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have 2 of them. Okay, so that is how 2/5 would be represented. Now you know that 2/5 of a number is 82. So that 2/5 over here represents 82, and you're being asked to work out the number. So 5/5 is what the number would be, the whole. So if 2/5 of a number is 82, you know that 1/5 must be 82 divided by 2, which gives me 41. So you know that 1/5 is 41, and therefore, if 1/5 is 41, you can work out what the whole number is. We just do 41 times by 5. So once again, we could use the lattice method. 41 times by 5. 1 times 5 is 5. I don't know why I wrote that. 4 times 5 is 20. Add along. That would give you 205. So the number is 205. So with the laws of indices, what I need to do is consider what is happening with the algebra that I've been given. So 2x cubed, what does that actually mean? Well, it means that 2x is being multiplied by itself 3 times. So that would be 2x times 2x times 2x. I can split that up even further. So 2 times x times by 2 times x times by 2 times x. And I get to the root base of what is happening with the algebra. So then I can simplify it by multiplying all of the numbers together. So 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Times by 2 again gives you 8. And then x times x times x is x multiplied by itself 3 times. And I'd write that as x cubed. The little indice here, that means how many times x or the number has been multiplied by itself. So that's how I'd deal with that question there. The next question, I similarly probably want to write it out in terms of algebra. So what does it mean? Well, the top 18 is being multiplied by x to the power of 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times by y to the power of 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just squish it in there. And it's being divided by 6 times by x to the power of 4 times by y. So whenever we've got a fraction, if the terms on top and on the numerator and the denominator are being multiplied, we can just cancel them out. Because think about it, if I had, let's say, 5 times 4 divided by 5, that's 20 divided by 5, which we know is 4. So I could just cancel 5 times 5 and I'd still be left with 4. Whatever is on the top of me, if it's being multiplied, it can cancel out with something on the bottom. So here I can cancel out this x with this x, this one with this one, this one with this one, and this one with this one. And with the y's, I could cancel this with this. So I'd just be left with 18, and then I'm left with 1, 2 x's, so x squared, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 y's, so y to the power of 7 divided by 6. Now, I could also write this, so I could simplify it into two fractions. So I could write that as 18 over 6 times by x squared y7 over 1. And what's 18 divided by 6? That's simply 3. So my final answer would be 3x squared y to the power of 7. So always divide the numbers if you can, and then simplify the indices. If you want to know the quick way, the cheat way, when we're multiplying indices, so let's say you had y squared times y cubed, you add the powers together, so that would be y to the power 5. And when dividing, so like how we had y to the power of 8 divided by y, now remember, a number by itself is going to be to the power of 1. So we subtract the indices. 8 take 1 is 7. Okay, so standard form is a way of writing really big numbers or really small numbers in a way that they are easily comparable. So we always write them as a number times by 10 to the power of something. Okay, now the number needs to always be between 1 and 9.999 recurring. So let's have a go at seeing how we could write this. So 13,500, I would write that as 1.35 as a number between 1 and 9.9, and then times by 10 to the power of something. So if you get stuck in the exam, it might be helpful to just be like, okay, 10 to the power of 1, I know is timesing by 10. 10 squared is timesing by 100. 10 cubed is timesing by 1,000. 10 to the power of 4 is timesing by 10,000. So what power of 10 do I need to multiply 1 by, or 1.35 by, to get to 13,000? Well, if I multiplied it by 10, that would give me 13. By 100 would be 135. By 1,000 would be 1,350. So it must be times 10 to the power of 4. Now, write as an ordinary number 4.2 times 10 to the power of minus 3. When I've got a negative standard form, that means I'm actually dividing by a power of 10. So 10 to the power of negative 1 is the same as 0.1. 10 to the power of minus 2 is the same as 0.01. Or you might write it as 1 over 10, 1 over 100. So 4.2 times by 10 to the power of minus 3 would be 4.2 times by 0.001. So the quick way of doing this would be to just say, okay, it's to the power of minus 3. So that means I'm going to have 3 zeros before I start writing my number. So 1, 0, 2, 3, and then you write your number. That's how you'd write that in as an ordinary number. Now write 0.00612 in standard form. So I know I need to write it as a number between 1 and 9.9. So that would be 6.12 times by 10 to the power of, and I can just count how many zeros there are. So 1, 2, 3, 4 to the power of negative 4. If it's turning into decimal form, that means you're dividing by 10. So it's going to be to the negative. And then write this as an ordinary number. So I would write 9, and then 10 to the power of 5 is the same as multiplying as 100,000. So you can do that, or you could just count the digits after the 9. So it would be 6, 3, 4. That's 1, 2, 3 digits, and I need another 2. I just fill them in with zeros. So that would be 963,400. So when you're multiplying by a positive power, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers after the digit. And when it's a negative, you just count how many zeros there are before you start your number. So when I'm converting with standard form, I get some trickier calculations like this. So 2.6 times 10 to the power of 5 divided by 4 times 10 to the power of 3. Now I can write this in fraction form if I want. So 2.6 times 10 to the power of 5, well, that's 2. And then 6 counts as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's 260,000 divided by 4 times 10 cubed would be 1, 2, 3. 4 times 1,000 is 4,000. And now what can I do? I can just divide. So divide by 10. I cancel those zeros out. Divide by 10 again. Oh, I don't know why it deleted itself. I cancel those zeros out. Divide by 10 again. I cancel that out. And I'm left with 260 divided by 4, which I can use the bus stop method for. 4 is into 2, go 0. 4 is into 26, go 6, remainder 2. And 4 is into 20, go 5. So that would be 65. I've been asked to give my answer in standard form. So I'd say that's 6.5 times 10 to the power of 1. And now I am being told to work this out. So 2 times 10 to the power of 6. So 2 times 10 to the power of 6. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 million divided by 6 times 10 to the power of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 60,000. Now let's see what we can do. Well, divide by 10, divide by 10 again, divide by 10 again, divide by 10 again. I'm left with 200 divided by 6. So let's use the bus stop again. How many times does 6 fit into 200? 6 is into 2, go 0. 6 is into 20, go 3, remainder 2. 6 is into 20, go 3, remainder 2. So that's going to be a recurring number, 33.3, which we could write as 33 1/3. So next I've got inequality notation, and when I'm using inequalities, that just means that I'm saying that something is less than or greater than. Okay, so maybe you remember from primary school that the crocodile teeth, they always face the larger number. And if you've got a line underneath like that, that would mean less than or equal to, and here it would mean greater than or equal to. So I need to circle the correct statement. Here I've got a decimal and a fraction. So what I need to do first is figure out what 3/8 is. Now you might know what 1/8 is, which is great. Multiply it by 3 and that gives you 3/8. Or you might have to use the bus stop method to figure it out. So how many 8s fit into 3? 3 divided by 8. Well, no 8s fit into 3, so I'll put 0, remainder 3. How many 8s fit into 30? So I know that 8 times by 4 is 32. 8 times by 3 is 24. Oh, times by 3 is 24. So I'd write 3 on the top and then a remainder of 6. How many times does 8 go into 60? Well, I know that 8 times by 7 is 56. I'm getting quite tired now. So that's 7, remainder 4. How many 8s go into 40? 5. So that would be 0.375. So is 0.4 greater than 0.375? Yes. Well, we've worked it out. That's all you need to do. Convert it and then figure out which statement is better. What this means is less than or equal to. This means greater than or equal to. And this obviously means equal to. Now here we need to choose one of these 3 symbols to make each statement true. So first, when you've got things like this, work it out. So 7 take 4, that's 3. Minus 4 plus 7, so I start minus 4 and I go up 7. That also gives me 3. So therefore, this must equal that. Minus 13 is here on the number line. Minus 21 would be down there. So minus 13 is greater than negative 21. So the closer you are to 0, the larger the number is. 3 cubed, what does that mean? 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And 9 times 3 is also 27. So we've got another equals here. So inequality notation. Now, integers, what does that mean? An integer simply means a whole number. Okay, so it can't be a decimal. So I need to write down all the integers that satisfy this inequality. Now, what does this inequality mean? It means that x must be greater than or equal to negative 4 and less than 3. So if minus 4 is less than or equal to x, that's the same. Minus 4 is less than or equal to x. That's the same as saying x is greater than or equal to minus 4. So could x be minus 4? Yep. Could it be -3? Yep. Could it be -2, -1, 0, 1, 2? And then I'm told it's less than 3, which means it cannot be 3. So these are all of the integers that satisfy the inequality. Now over here, I'm being asked to show this inequality on a number line, except this is a bit of a sneaky one because you've got 2x in the middle. Now, whenever you don't just have x in the middle like here, you're going to need to solve the equation. So you've got -2 is less than or equal to 2x, which is less than 6. What does 2x mean? It means 2 times by x. So to solve that, I'm going to need to divide each part of the equation by 2. So -2 divided by 2 is -1. 2x divided by 2 is obviously x, that's why I've done it. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So this is my equation. -1 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 3. Now, when showing inequalities on a number line, if it's less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, you put in a coloured in dot. If it is less than or greater than, you leave the dot blank to show that it can't be that number. So I put a dot above -1 and I put a dot above 3, and x can be any of these values. So it could be -1, 0, 1, 2, but it cannot be 3. It could be anything just below 3 though. So systematic listing is where I want to be really systematic with the way I list things. So that means taking one thing and matching it with everything else it can possibly match with. So in the school canteen, you can pick a main course, dessert, and a drink. How many possible combinations are there? And show you're working. So what you want to do is start with your main course. So a lasagna. I can have a lasagna with a sponge cake and still water. I could also have a lasagna with sponge cake and orange juice. I could also have a lasagna with a sponge cake and an apple juice. So can you see I take this route and that route, and then I go to each route here. Now I've covered all my bases with the lasagna and the sponge cake. I'll go with lasagna and fruit selection. So I could have a lasagna with a fruit selection and a still water, a lasagna with a fruit selection and an orange juice, a lasagna with a fruit selection and an apple juice. Now you've covered all your bases with your lasagna and your fruit selection, and now we've got to cover our bases with a chocolate tart. So you've got lasagna, chocolate tart and still water, lasagna, chocolate tart and orange juice, lasagna, chocolate tart and apple juice. Now that is quite time consuming, but it has to be done. So I've covered all my bases. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 options for lasagna. Then I'm going to do the same with ratatouille. Let's do it in a different colour. So you've got ratatouille with sponge cake and still water, ratatouille with sponge cake and orange juice, ratatouille with sponge cake and apple juice. And hopefully you might realise that if with the lasagna there are 9 options, with the ratatouille there are also going to be 9 options. And similarly with the chicken salad there are also going to be 9 options. So 9 plus 9 plus 9 gives you 27. So therefore there must be 27 combinations. Okay, so here I'm being asked to complete the sentences with regards to these parts of a circle. Now the line OA, so the line from the centre of a circle to the outside of a circle, is called the radius. It doesn't matter which direction it's facing, that would be a radius, that would be a radius too. The line BC, so a line touching the outside of the circle once, is called a tangent. Now the area below DE, now line DE, that's called a chord. It's a line from one edge of the circle to another, but not going through the centre, because the name of the chord that goes through the centre of the circle is called the diameter. Now the area formed below a chord is called a segment. If you had the area and it was formed by 2 radii, that would be called a sector. Okay, but this area is a segment. And the longest line on a circle is the circumference. So if we unraveled the circle and just, you know, if it was a piece of string and we unraveled it, the longest line would be the circumference. So this question requires us to know about equilateral triangles and isosceles triangles. Now, an equilateral triangle is a triangle that has 3 equal sides, and therefore we know that its angles are going to be 60 degrees. We know this because every triangle has angles that add up to 180 degrees. And if there's 3 of them that are equal, we just do 180 divided by 3. So I know that this angle here is going to be 60 degrees. I mean, this one as well and this one too. And I can use that to help me. Now I'm told that DC, so the line DC over here, and DE are equal. So that means that this triangle here is an isosceles triangle. And in an isosceles triangle, we have 2 equal sides and 2 equal base angles. So whatever this angle here is, it's going to be equal to this angle here. Now I know that angles in a triangle add up to 180. So I could do 180, take 32, which gives me 10 take 2 is 8, 7 take 3 is 4, 148 degrees. So I know that these 2 base angles must add to make 148 degrees. If they are both equal, I just do 148 divided by 2, which would give me 74 degrees. So I know that angle here is 74 degrees. Now I've got a straight line here with that angle that I've worked out from the equilateral triangle. I've got my missing angle X, and I've got this angle here that I've worked out as 74 degrees. I know that angles on a straight line add to make 180 degrees. So 60 plus 74 gives me 134 degrees, and 180 take 134 gives me 646 degrees. So therefore, this missing angle here must be 46 degrees. Okay, so here I'm being asked to translate a shape. Now, when I am being asked to translate something, what that means is move it by the given vector. And every vector is given as a movement across the x-axis and along the y-axis. So the top value is your x movement and your bottom value is your y movement. Now, if you're moving to the right along the x-axis, your x value will be positive. If you're moving left, it will be negative. Similarly with your y values, if you're moving up, the value will be positive, and if you're moving down, the value will be negative. So the vector I've been given is 3, -4. So that means a positive 3 along the x-axis, and it's a -4, so it means a -4 along the y-axis. So essentially a movement of 3 across and 4 down. So the way I translate a vector is pick a point on your shape, and I go 1, 2, 3 across and 1, 2, 3, 4 down. So that point is going to correspond over here. You can do it with another point. So over here, you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 down. You can do it with a third point, or you could just draw it, whichever you feel most comfortable with. So let's do it here. 1, 2, 3 across and 1, 2, 3, 4 down. So there I have translated my shape. Oh, normally it's going to tell you to name it, but let's just do that anyway. So this can be called shape B. Then it tells me to reflect the shape in the line x equals 4. Now the line x equals 4 is where the x coordinate is always going to be 4. So that's this vertical line here. And all I do to reflect it is draw the mirror image. So this angle here, this triangle would be C. So here we've got a perimeter question, and I have been given an isosceles triangle. I know it's an isosceles triangle because these 2 lines here indicate that the sides are equal. And if a triangle has 2 equal sides, then it is an isosceles triangle. So I know the perimeter is 36 degrees. So whatever 2x plus 7 plus 3x plus 4 plus the missing value is, that must add up to 36 degrees. 36 centimeters. Now, I know the two sides are equal, so I can set up an equation for myself. So 2x plus 7 must equal 3x plus 4. Hopefully you've watched the beginning where we went through solving two-step equations. So you circle your smallest x value and subtract that from both sides. So 7 is x plus 4, and then you'd subtract 4 from both sides to figure out the value of x. So you know that x is 3. Now, if x is 3, we can substitute it back into each equation. So if x is 3, 3 times x, 3 times 3 would be 9. 9 plus 4 is 13. So this side would be 13. Now, they're equal sides, so this side here should be 13 as well if I've done the calculations correctly. So let's try it. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 7 is 13. So hooray, I've done that right. Now, I'm told the perimeter of this triangle is 36 centimetres. So I know that 13 plus CE, whatever that length here is, must equal 36 centimetres. So 26 plus CE equals 36. So therefore, if I just take 26 from both sides, the line or the length CE must be 10 centimetres. Okay, so this question is about a sector of a circle. Now, I'm just quickly going to write the formula for the sector of a circle down because this one we don't necessarily need it. But to work out the sector area, we would just do the area of a circle, which is pi r squared, times by the fraction of the circle. So if it was like the angle of the sector was 60 degrees, I'd write it as 60 over 360. Okay, that's just a little thing that you should remember in case it's not a simple quarter circle. So we are told that a quarter circle is cut from a square piece of card. Now that's important because if it's a square piece of card, then that means that all sides are going to be equal. So that means that this side here is also going to be equal. I need to work out the area of the leftover piece of card, so this bit here, and leave my answer in terms of pi, which means I don't need to do any calculating with pi. I just treat it as an algebraic variable. So let's see what I can work out first. In order to work out the area of the leftover piece, I need to work out the area of the total thing. So the area of the square would simply be 6 times 6, which is 36 centimetres squared. Okay, so I know that the total area of everything is 36 centimetres squared. Now I need to work out the area of the sector of the circle. So how do I work out the area of a circle? Well, the formula for the area of a circle is pi times by radius squared. Now what's the radius of this circle? Well, I know that this length here is 6, and I know it's a quarter of a circle, so therefore the radius must be 6 centimetres. So if this was a whole circle, I'd do pi times 6 squared, which would give me 36 pi. Now, remember, you want to leave your answer in terms of pi, so you don't need to multiply it by pi. You just leave it as 36 pi. However, it is a quarter of a circle. So if it was a full circle, the area would be 36 pi, but it's a quarter of a circle. So I'm going to only want a quarter of it, so I can divide 36 by 4. So 36 pi over 4 would leave me with 36 divided by 4, which is 9 pi. So I know the area of the sector is 9 pi. Now, if I know the area of the full square is 36 and the area of the sector is 9 pi, I need to subtract that. So my total area is 36. I subtract the area of the sector, and then I'm left with this bit here, the leftover bit of card. So my leftover piece of card would leave me with 36 take away 9 pi. People always think, I need to work out more. No, you don't, because you leave your answer in terms of pi. So you can't simplify that any further. So that's how we do that. And now we're being asked to work out the perimeter of the quarter circle. So I'll just get rid of this. So the perimeter of the quarter circle, that's where I need to use the formula for the circumference. Now the formula for the circumference of a circle is pi times diameter. So what would the diameter of this circle be? Well, I know that the diameter is double the radius. So in this case, the diameter will be double 6, which is 12 centimeters. So once again, if this was a full circle, I would just do pi times 12, which is 12 pi. But it's a quarter circle, so whatever the circumference of the full circle is, I only want a quarter of that. So I do 12 pi divided by 4, which leaves me with 3 pi. So this part here is 3 pi. However, I am being asked to work out the perimeter of the quarter circle. Now, perimeter is all the way around, adding up all of the lengths of the outside. So that is 3 pi, but I also need to add this part, which is 6 centimeters, and this part here, which is 6 centimeters. So the perimeter of the circle would be 3 pi plus 12. And that's your final answer. Okay, so angles and triangles. Hopefully we remember that angles in a triangle always sum to 180 degrees. Also, over here, hopefully we can see that we have 2 of these like little lines, which means that the sides are equal. So a diagram shows triangle XYZ and straight line XP. Work out the size of the angle YZP. Now, when thinking about what that's referring to, we start at the first letter, which is Y. Then we go to Z and P. So why did it delete that? So let's just go along here. YZP must be this angle here. So that's the angle I'm trying to work out. Now it's an isosceles triangle because of these 2 lines. So I know that the base angles are going to be equal. So I'd do 180, take 24 to figure out what the base angles must add up to. So 10 take 4 is 6, 5, 1, 5, 6. So I know that these 2 angles add up to make 156 degrees. And I also know they're equal. Therefore, if I divide it by 2, so 78 degrees each, then I've figured out what my angles in the triangle are. However, I am being asked to work out the size of angle YZP. I've also been told that it's a straight line. So what do I know about angles on a straight line? I know that they sum to make 180 degrees. So I just do 180, take 78, and that would give me my angle here. So 0 take 8 I can't do. I borrow the 10, that's a 2, 0, 1. So this angle here would be 102 degrees. Okay, so when I am constructing a region, I'm going to want to use a compass and a ruler. So it tells me that a scale drawing shows the positions of 3 garden sprinklers, A, B and C. The sprinklers reach a distance of 2 meters each, and I'm being asked to shade the region on the scale drawing where the sprinklers won't cover. I've also been told that on the scale drawing 1 centimetre represents 2 meters. So therefore, if 1 centimetre represents 2 meters, I'm going to want to get a ruler and measure 1 centimetre. Okay, so I don't have a ruler because this is an iPad, but imagine you had a ruler and you open your compass up, put the point on the one end and the tip of the pencil on the other on a ruler to where it goes 1 centimetre. So you've got your compass open to 1 centimetre. Now put that on the dot. Let's start with C, and you should be able to draw a circle of radius 1 centimetre. So that tells you the area where the sprinkler will cover. Do the same over here. So a circle of radius 1 centimetre, and the same over here, a circle of radius 1 centimetre. Now, this isn't very accurate because I'm just trying to show you, but these areas are where the sprinklers would cover. So the region that they do not cover is shaded over here. So when I am converting lengths, the key things I need to know is that 1 kilometre is the same as 1,000 metres. 1 metre is 100 centimetres. and I should be able to freely convert between them. So put these three distances in order of a size. The most important thing to do is to put them all into the same unit of measure. So either choose kilometers or meters. I'm going to choose meters. So 2.7 kilometers. If I know that 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters, then 2.7 kilometers, how do I get from a kilometer to meters? I multiply by 1,000. So 2.7 would be 2,700 meters. This is already written in meters, so I don't need to do anything there. And here I've got 2 3/4 kilometers. So 3/4 of a kilometer. Hopefully we know that 3/4 is the same as 0.75. So 3/4 of a kilometer would be 750 meters. So 2,750 meters is what this would be. So in order of size, I'd say 2,650 meters, 2.7 kilometers, and 2 3/4 kilometers. Now for the question over here, I am being asked to find the distance between the forest trail and the lake walk, and here they tell me the distance of the forest trail, 1.4 kilometers to the left and 650 kilometers to the right. So the distance between them would be the distance over here plus this distance here. So let's convert it. 1.4 kilometers, I times that by 1,000 to get it into meters, is 1,400 meters. And then I add 650 meters to that. So 1,400 plus 650 leaves me with 2,050 meters. So the distance between is 2,050 meters. So here I am being asked to convert lengths once again, but in a little bit of a more kind of problem solving-y question. So the length of the rectangle is 160 millimeters. And the perimeter of the rectangle is 35 centimeters. So that should say 160 millimeters there. And I need to calculate the width of the rectangle and give my answer in millimeters. Okay, so if I need to give my answer in millimeters, it will be helpful to convert centimeters into millimeters. So 1 centimeter is equivalent to 10 millimeters. So therefore 35 centimeters would be 35 times 10, which is 350 millimeters. So I know that the length is 160 millimeters. So this length here will be 160 and this length here will also be 160 because rectangles have the same length of opposite sides. So 160 plus 160 gives me 320 millimeters. So I know that the remaining sides, the remaining width must be what's left over. So 350 take 320 leaves me with 30 millimeters. So I know that this W and this W, 2W must equal 30 centimeters, or both of these sides must equal 30 centimeters. They're both equal, so therefore I do 30 divided by 2, which gives me 15. So the width of the rectangle is 15 millimeters. Quite a small width. Okay, so percentages. I am told here that 5% of a number is 42 and 1% of the same number is 8.4, and I want to work out 17% of that number. Okay, well, how can I create 17% using this? Well, 17% is the same as 5% plus 5% plus 5% plus 1% plus 1%. Or I could have said 10% plus 5%. So that means I already know what 5% is. So that means that would be 42 plus 42 plus 42 plus 8.4 plus 8.4. So all I have to do really is add all of these up. So 42 times by 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12. That's 126. And then 8.4 plus 8.4 gives me 16.8. So 126 plus 16.8, let's do that here, would give me 6 plus 6 is 12, 2, 3, 4, 142.8 is the number that I've been given, that I have worked out. Okay, so the next question, sorry, I think that's my neighbour just having fun. Okay, Jamie and Harry book theme park tickets that cost £105. They have a voucher that entitles them to 20% off the total price, and they share the total cost of the tickets in the ratio 1:3. Work out how much more Harry pays than Jamie. Okay, so the tickets cost £105, and they have a voucher that entitles them to 20% off. Okay, because this is a non-calculator paper, the easiest way to calculate 20% is with 10%. How do you work out 10%? Hopefully you know that to work out 10%, you just divide by 10. If not, then write this down. So 10% would be £10.50, and 20% is double 10%. So I'd double that. £10.50 times by 2 would give me £21. So 20% off is £21. So 105 take 21 would leave me with £84. So they then share the total cost of the tickets in the ratio 1:3. So they are sharing £84 in the ratio 1 part for who's Jamie. So Jamie pays a 1 part, and 1, 2, 3. Harry pays 3 parts. Okay, so 84 is being split into 4 parts in total. That's how we work out ratio. We add up the parts, so 3 plus 1 is 4. So 84 is split into 4 parts. So 4s into 84 go 2 and 1. So each part must be worth £21. So therefore, Jamie pays £21, and Harry pays 21 times by 3, which is £63. How much more does Harry pay than Jamie? Well, 63 take 21, 3 take 1 is 2, 6 take 2 is 4. He pays £42 more than Jamie. Okay, so an amount as a percentage. So I'm being asked here to work out 30 as a percentage of 10. So 10 is the amount, and 30 is what I want to represent it as a percentage of. So 30 as a percentage of 10, I would write it out of 10, and then I'd multiply it by 100. Whenever you're trying to write something as a percentage of something else, you write it over the total and you multiply it by 100. So 30 divided by 10 is 3. 3 times 100 is 300. So 30 is 300% of 10. And that makes sense because 3 lots of 10 is 30. And if 10 represents 100%, 30 would represent 300%. So 30 as a percentage of 10 is 300%. Now, Katie brings 250 salted caramel brownies. I love salted caramel brownies. To a local market. She sells 200 of the brownies. What percentage of the flapjacks did she sell? So she sold 200 out of the total, which is 250. And then I'm going to multiply that by 100 to turn it into a percentage. So let's try dividing as much as I can. Divide both by 10. So 20 divided by 25. Can I simplify that any further? Well, I know that 5 goes into both 20 and 25. So 20 divided by 5 is 4, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. So I've got 4/5 times by 100. Now you might know what 4/5 is, you might know it's 0.8, but if you don't, then just use the bus stop method. 4 divided by 5. How many times does 5 go into 4? 0. So I've run out of numbers, so just put loads of zeros here. How many times does 5 go into 40? 8. So you've got 0.8 times by 100, which would give you 80%. Okay, so here we've got a ratio problem. So Holly plays a game on her console. She can either win or lose a game, so there's no like in between. She wins 4/5 of her first 30 games and then wins her next 15 games. Okay, so for all 45 games, work out the ratio of wins to losses. So let's figure out how many games she won from her first 30 games. So 4/5 of 30. 4/5 simply means a whole has been split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts, and I want to work out 4 of those. So 30 divided by 5 gives me 6. Okay, so each part here is going to have a value of 6, and 4/5 would be 4 times 6, which is 24. So she has won 24 of the first 30 games. She also wins her next 15 games. So let's add that up. That is 9, 3. So she has won 39 games out of 45, which must mean that she has lost 6. Now it says give your answer in its simplest form. So I find the highest common factor. So let's divide both sides by 3. So 39 divided by 3 would be 13. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that's my answer in its simplest form. Now over here, I need to write the ratio 6 to 5 in the form n to 1. So what that means is, how do I get from 5 to 1? I divide by 5. So to turn my 5 into 1, I'd be dividing by 5. I do exactly the same here. So I do 6 divided by 5. So what is 6 divided by 5? How many times does 5 go into 6? Once. Remainder 1. How many times does 5 go into 10? 2. So that would be 1.2, oopsie, that would be 1.2 to 1. That's how you do the ratio n to 1, but I don't think this is coming up in this one, it's coming up in paper 2. Okay, so using our knowledge of ratios to fractions. So A to B is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts to 3 parts. And I need to circle the correct statement. So B is 3/8 of A. That's A, that's B. B is not 3/8 of A because A is only 5 parts. So therefore it cannot be 5/8 either because the total is 8, but A only has 5 parts. So B must either be 3/5 of A or 5/3 of A. So B has 3 parts out of a total of 5 parts of A. So therefore B must be 3/5 of whatever A is. B, the value of B is less than the value of A. So it's 3/5 of A. Okay, so a cost problem over here. So we've got 250 passengers go on a coach trip. Each coach takes 45 passengers. They each pay £20 for their ticket. And the cost is £100 to hire a coach for the day. And the company charges 80p per mile. Quite pricey. Okay, so each coach travels 300 miles for their round trip journey. Work out the total profit the company makes from this trip. Okay, so total profit. First of all, let's find out how much the passengers pay. So there's 250 passengers that pay £20. So I could just do 250 times 10, which is 2,500, and times it by 2, which is 5,000. So quite a hefty amount. £5,000 they take from the passengers. But now let's work out how much they spend. So £100 to hire each coach. Now there are 45 passengers on each coach. So how many coaches will there need to be? Well, there's 45, then 90, 135, plus 45, 180, plus 45, 225. And then you've only got 25 left over, but you can't just have a coach. You can't just have the remaining 25 people like on top of the coach. So you're going to need an extra coach, even though there's going to be a surplus of seats. So that would be 270. So you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coaches. So the cost is £100 to hire each coach. So that is a cost, let's write a cost here. 6 times 100 is 600. So it's £600 for coaches. And then I'm told the cost the company charges is 80 pence per mile and 300 miles. So 80 times by 300 is going to give me 8 times 3 is 24. And then add the zeros, so 24,000 pence. I could write that in pounds, so divide that by 100, so that would be £240 per coach. Okay, so £240, I've calculated there are 6 coaches. I'm going to need to do 6 times by 240. So I could break that up if I wanted to, 2 times 3 times 240. So 3 times 240 would give me 720. So 2 times 720 is 1,440. I am very tired, so if my mental maths is off, please forgive me. So the cost for the petrol, the fuel would be 1,440. Are there any other costs? Nope. Okay, so the total costs are 600 plus 1,440 would give you £2,040. That is the cost. The amount they take from the passengers is 5,000. So let's subtract that. 2,040 gives you 2,000. Oh, my brain. Okay, I can't take 0 from 4, so I borrow from here, but I can't do that, so I borrowed that. That turns into a 9. 10 take 4 is 6. 9 take 0 is 9. 4 take 2 is 2. So 2,960 is the total profit they have made. Okay, so nearly approaching the end, everyone. Density. How do we work out density? Well, the formula for density is mass over volume. Okay, so Aisling stumbles across 2 rocks on her hike up a volcano. I would quite like to be hiking up a volcano right now. The first rock has a volume of 15 centimeters cubed and a mass of 45 grams. The second rock is 30 and 60. Which rock is more dense? Okay, so let's work this out. So rock 1 is 45 grams over 15. Remember, mass over volume. So 45 divided by 15 is 3. So the density would be 3 grams per centimeters cubed. And for rock 2, the density would be mass is 60, volume is 30. 60 divided by 30 is 2 grams per centimeter cubed. So which rock is more dense? Rock 1. Okay, so sometimes when you need to use a two-way table, the question won't actually tell you that you need to construct a two-way table. But if you've got a really worded question where they give you a total and they say that 30 out of this did this, 20 out of this did this, then you probably want to construct yourself a two-way table. So over here, we know that Amy asks everyone in her year group how they each travel to school. We know there are 150 people in the year group and that there are 30 more girls than there are boys in the year. 75 students walk to school, of which 20 are boys, 10 boys get the bus and 20 girls get the car. So I can construct my two-way table like this. I've got girls, boys, so the options are walk, bus or car. Okay, so I know that in total there are 150 students. And I know that 75 students in total walk to school, of which 20 are boys. So that is the information I can fill in. I also know that 10 boys get the bus to school and 20 girls get a car to school. So what can I work out? Well, I know that if 75 people walk in school in total and 20 of them are boys, then 75 take 20 gives me 55. So that must mean 55 girls walk to school. I don't know my totals yet, so I'm going to need to do something with that. I know there are 30 more girls than there are boys in the year. So whatever the boys are, let's call that X. I know that there are 30 more than that. So the boys represent X, and then the girls would represent X plus 30. And I know that total is 150. So I could simplify that to 2X plus 30 equals 150. Subtract 30 from both sides. So 2X is 120. So therefore X is 60. So I know there must be 60 boys in total. So I can fill that in here. If I know there are 60 boys, 150 takes 60 is 90. So I know there are 90 girls in total. Now I can use this to fill in the rest of the table. So the boys must total 60. 20 plus 10 is 30. Plus another 30 would give me 60. There are 20 girls that take a car. 30 boys that take a car. So in total that must be 50. And there are... So I could do it either of two ways. I know that 55 plus 20 gives me 75, and the total of the girls is 90. So 90 take 75 is, oh, I've got something in my eye, 5, and 8 take 7 is 1. So that must be 15 girls, and therefore 25 people get the bus in total. So I'm being asked what fraction of the girls get the bus to school. So the bus, that's 15 out of 90. I could simplify that if I wanted to, but it doesn't ask me to, so I don't need to. Now, one of the boys is chosen at random. So one of the boys, so there are 60 boys in total. So my probability will be out of 60. What is the probability that this boy travels to school by car? How many boys travel by car? 30. So that's 30 over 60. I can simplify that because that's a half. That's probability. And then it asks me what percentage of the 150 students travel to school by car. Well, there's 50 students that travel by car out of a total of 150. So to turn that into a percentage, I could simplify that to its simplest form, 5 over 15, which would simplify to a third. A third, hopefully you know, is 0.333, well, 0.3 recurring. So I times that by 100 to turn it into a percentage, which would be 33.3%. So here I've got a question involving the mean, and the mean is the meanest of the averages. The way I calculate it is by adding all my values, so the sum of all my values, divided by the number of values. So always bear that in mind if you are being asked to problem solve with a mean. Now I'm being told a rugby team has 19 players and they have a mean height of 160 centimetres. A player with 180 centimetre joins the team. What is the new mean height? Okay, so what information do I know? I know the mean is 160. I don't know what all the values add up to, but I do know that there are 19 players. So how could I work out the sum of values? I could do 160 times by 19. So let's just use the lattice method here. 160 times by 19. 0 times 1 is 0, 0 times 9 is 0, 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 9 is 54, 1 times 1 is 0, 1, and 1 times 9 is 0, 9. So that would give me 0, 4, 9 plus 6 is 15, plus 5 is 20, 1 plus 2 is 3. So the sum of all my values must be 3040 centimetres. Now, the new player joins the team, so I've got 3040 plus 180, which would give me 4 plus 8 is 12, 1 plus 1 is 2, 3,220. So the mean would be 3,220 over 20 because I now have another player. So 19 plus 1 is 20. How could I simplify this? Divide both sides by 10. Well, not both sides, the top and the bottom. So I've got 322 divided by 2. I can use the bus stop method. 2's into 3 go once, the remainder 1. 2's into 12 go 6 times, 2's into 2 go once. So the new mean height of the team must be 161 centimetres. Okay, so the word outlier, what does that mean? An outlier is a piece of data that doesn't fit with the general trend of the other data. It doesn't really make sense. Sometimes it's a recording error, sometimes it's just a random fluke, or something special happened on that day. So here I've got a scatter graph detailing someone that sells ice creams. So the graph shows the number of ice creams sold over the course of a month and the respective midday temperature of those days. I'm being asked to work out an estimate for the number of ice creams. Okay, so if I'm being asked to estimate using a scatter graph, what I need to do is draw a line of best fit. Now, to draw a line of best fit, you simply draw a line that goes through as much of the data as possible. So you roughly want to have as many points above as below, and it does not need to start at 0. So a line of best fit, that won't be the best. So let's try again. It's slightly difficult to do without a ruler, but a line of best fit perhaps would look like that. Okay, this is a very, very accurate one. When you've got your inaccurate one, when you've got your ruler, you'll do it a lot better. So it says with a midday temperature of 25 degrees, I go to 25 degrees, I go up to my line of best fit and across to figure out what the Y value must be. So that would be around 300 ice creams. Okay, so if you're being asked to estimate using a scatter graph, you need to draw a line of best fit and then use it. Now, one of these results is an outlier. An outlier is just an odd piece of data. Write down the coordinates of the point. So here is my outlier. It's really, really far away from the rest of the points. And what are the coordinates? Well, that's 1, 2, 3, and then 500. Okay, so the X coordinate always comes first, and then the Y coordinate. Give a possible reason for this outlier. Well, why would lots of people buy, or why would someone buy 500 ice creams when it is 3 degrees? I don't know, maybe it was someone's birthday. So a large order for a gathering, for a special occasion. Or you might say perhaps it was a recording error. Or anything really that makes sense as to why people would buy ice creams when it's cold. So here I've got a probability problem. Now, probability is just the likeliness of something happening. Probability, when it's written in its decimal form or fraction form, always needs to add to 1. So I'm being told that a bag contains only pink, purple, black and turquoise marbles. A marble is taken from the bag at random and the table shows some of their probabilities. I'm told that the probability of taking a turquoise marble is 3 times more likely than taking a purple marble. So let's figure out how much probability I've left. I know 0.15 plus 0.25 leaves me with 5 plus 5 is 10, 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So this and this adds up to 0.4, which means the purple and turquoise must add up to make 0.6 because probability has to add to make 1. So 0.6 is the probability of a turquoise marble or a purple marble being drawn. Now, the turquoise marble is 3 times more likely than a purple marble. So if my purple marble, I say the likelihood of it being taken out is X because I don't know, then the probability of it being turquoise would be 3 times that. And 3 times X, I can just write as 3X. So I know that X plus 3X would simplify to make 4X, and that 4X equals 0.6. So to figure out what X is, I do 0.6 divided by 4. How many 4s go into 0? None. How many 4s? So how many 4s go into 6? 1, remainder 2. So I put my little zeros here. How many 4s go into 25? So the probability of it being X is 0.15. Now, which one was X? So turquoise is 3 times. So purple would be X. So that would be 0.15. And then what's 0.15 times by 3? That would be 0.45. So that's how I've completed the table. Now, there are 200 marbles in the bag altogether. How many pink marbles are there? So if the probability of getting a pink marble is 0.15, I just need to work out 0.15 times by 200. Now, how can I do that? So what does 0.15 mean? It means 15 over 100 times by 200. So what's 15 times by 200? Well, 15 times 2 is 30. Add the zeros, that would be 3,000. So 3,000 divided by 100 leaves me with 30. So there are 30 pink marbles. Okay, and the last question. Feels like we were never going to get here, but we did. So, a Venn diagram. Travel agency surveyed its most recent holiday makers and asked them if they had ever visited Cuba or Costa Rica. Of the 100 people asked, 35 said they had been to neither country, 20 said they had been to both, and 45 said they had been to Costa Rica. I need to use this information to complete the Venn diagram. So I know that everything inside the Venn diagram must total 100 because 100 people were asked. 35 said they had been to neither country. So they hadn't been to Cuba, they hadn't been to Costa Rica. Therefore, we put them on the outside because they haven't been to any country. They won't fit in either circle. 20 said they had been to both. So over here, this is the intersection. That is where I put information that is valid for both parts. So 20 people have been both to Cuba and Costa Rica. And 45 said they had been to Costa Rica. Now, this doesn't say only Costa Rica, it says Costa Rica. So Costa Rica would be everything inside this circle. So 45 take 20 gives me 25. So I'd put 25 over here because that whole circle of Costa Rica must total 45. Now, what's left over? Well, I know everything must total 100. So inside Costa Rica is 45. Neither is 35. So let's add them together. That's 10, 4, 7, 8. So that's 80 people in total have been accounted for. 100 take 80 is 20. So 20 people have been only to Cuba. Now, one of the people is chosen at random. What is the probability that this holiday maker has been to Cuba? So out of my total is going to be out of 100 because that's how many people have been asked. And I know that 20 plus 20, 40 people have been to Cuba. So that would be my probability. You can leave it as a fraction. You could turn it into a percentage. You could turn it into a decimal, whatever you like. They're all equivalent. And that's that. So if you made it this far, congratulations.